I'm going to run through what I think are the most profitable AI systems and services that you can provide in 2026 and show you exactly how to put them together. I want to start this video a bit differently, but before I actually show you these systems, I want to explain a little bit about where this list actually comes from, because I actually think that matters more than the systems itself. Every few months there's a new AI trend, a new app, a new model, new types of agents that can do things that 6 months ago they couldn't do. And most people trying to make money with AI just chase whatever that trend is. And I think that's a bit backwards. The thing is, trends change, but the things that businesses actually need hasn't changed in decades. And they're not going to change just because the AI tools did. So instead of starting with what can AI do right now, I started with a different question. What does every business permanently need, regardless of what year it is? And now, where does AI actually fit into that? And the first answer is always sales. Any business in any industry in any decade runs on the same basic loop to get someone interested, and then turn that interest into money. Getting to a lead before someone else does. Following up enough times. Not letting someone who's already raised their hand go cold. None of that is a 2026 AI idea. That was all true 20 years ago, and it will be true in 20 more years, which means any sales-orientated operation is and always will be a huge opportunity. The only thing that changes is how cheap and how fast it actually is to build one. The second answer is everything that happens behind the scenes. The paperwork, the data entry, the reporting that nobody's doing. Every business has some version of a person moving information from one place to another, and every business would happily pay to make that pain go away. And the third is how businesses actually show up in the world. So whether people can find them, and then whether what they find actually makes a good impression on them. And that's been a category since before the internet even existed. It's the format that just keeps changing. None of these three categories are new. What's new is that AI has made it dramatically cheaper and easier to build in each of these categories than it was a year or 2 years ago. And that's what most businesses haven't caught up to yet. That gap between this is now cheap to build and almost no one has it yet is exactly where this video lives. So with that as the backdrop, here are the 4 systems that I'd actually build right now. In my own company, whenever we sit down with a new client or run through a new idea, we run through one test first. It either puts new money in the bank or it gives that business back some hours that they can then turn into money later on. That's it, 2 bars, and the idea has to clear one of them at least. It sounds simple, but you would be surprised at how many ideas don't actually survive that. Some ideas genuinely can be impressive, but they still might not clear that bar. And the second that happens, it doesn't matter how cool it looks, we move on. And that is the exact system that I ran on every one of these 4 ideas before it made the list. So, system 1. Now, sales can be a huge bottleneck for a majority of companies, whether that be getting sales, keeping sales, or managing sales. A large amount of company issues can always be brought back to some form of sales issue. Now, the solutions that I'm going to talk about cover different tasks that sales departments would do. The first thing that AI can be used to fix is something that's called speed to lead. Someone fills out a form or a quote and then it sits in an inbox for hours before anyone calls back. By the time someone actually does get in touch, they've already booked 2 other estimates with other companies. The second leak is quieter, but it's actually bigger. This company's been running for years, which means their CRM is full of old quotes. People who get an estimate went quiet and then they were never followed up with again. That's not a dead list. That's thousands of dollars of potential sales being untouched because of poor management. Before I show you how you can build systems to fix this, let's look at the numbers that these issues would actually result in. On the new lead side, say they're getting 60 leads a month from ads. Average project value is $12,000, and right now they're closing out about 10% of those because follow-up is slow. That's 6 projects, roughly $72,000 a month. Now, if you get a response out within minutes instead of hours, and a 20% jump to close rate is realistic, that's 12 projects and about $144,000 a month. It's the same ad spend, it's the same leads, and double the revenue. On the old lead side, say there are about 800 past quotes sitting in their CRM that were never converted. Even closing 3% of that list over the next few months, that's 24 projects at $12,000 each, which is close to $290,000 in project value that didn't even exist a month ago. Okay, so that's the why. Let's now get into the how and what does this actually look like to build. For this one, I built it in N8N. The reason I've done this is that this system has a lot of moving parts. So we've got a real-time trigger for new leads, a scheduled trigger for old ones, multiple outreach channels, and ongoing tracking of where every lead sits in the process. A visual workflow tool like N8N lets you see the whole funnel as kind of one connected map, which matters because you'll be coming back to it and adjusting it over time. Now, technically, you could write something with the same logic directly into Claude code if you wanted, the full custom control. But with this many branches, a workflow builder, for me, makes it a lot easier. At a high level, the system has 2 connected halves. On the new lead side, it needs to capture a lead the moment that it comes in. So from a form, an ad platform, or a missed call, and have AI immediately read those details and draft a personalized response. And that response needs to go out fast as a text. And then potentially for the high ticket businesses, it's worth layering in voice AI agents that can actually call the lead directly, qualify them, and then book a slot into your calendar. Whoever owns the lead on that team needs to be notified with full context, and there should be an automatic follow-up sequence as a backup if nobody responds. On the old lead side, it needs to be a recurring process that scans the CRM for contacts who've gone quiet. It should segment them based on where they've actually dropped off and have AI draft a personalized re-engagement message for each segment that references that person's actual history. Replies get read and classified automatically, so anyone who actually shows interest gets routed to a human with the full context attached. The thing that ties it all together is that both halves need to write back to the same CRM. So from the sales team side, it's one funnel and not two separate tools that are bolted together. Now here's why this wasn't really possible to build cheaply, even 2 years ago. Instant follow-up used to mean a generic autoresponder that nobody ever read. And reactivation used to mean either a mass blast that got ignored or hiring someone to write each contact individually, which mainly just falls apart past a dozen people. AI closes both of those gaps at once. It can respond to a brand new lead in a way that actually feels personal. And it can write to contact number 800 referencing their real history just as easily as it could contact number 1. So that's the entire sales funnel. We've got new leads getting attention, old leads getting woken up, and all of it flowing into the same place. So now let's go behind the scenes for a minute, because while all of that is running, there's probably a mountain of paperwork piling up that nobody's touched. So I've mentioned on multiple occasions that the boring systems are always the ones that are most profitable. And the advantage of automating some form of document handling is that you can rinse and repeat this system for hundreds of clients. Document handling is a manual task that every company has to do. And when you do the math, it's a no-brainer for companies to use your solution. At about 15 minutes per invoice, which is roughly 30 hours per week, that's basically a part-time job, and that's just for data entry. At $22 an hour, you're looking at $34,000 a year. And that's before you even count the errors that creep in and cost more down the line. If you automate that with a human only spot checking the exceptions, and 30 hours a week drops to maybe 5 or 6, as well as $34,000 back to spend anywhere else. For this one, I'd use NAN or Make and pair that with Claude's API. It's a good fit for a workflow tool because the logic is basically linear. Something comes in, it gets read, it gets checked, and then gets routed. And both of these tools have native connectors for things like email, Google Drive, and most accounting softwares. So you're not having to write custom integration code for any of it. At its core, this system just needs to watch for new documents arriving. Whether it's monitored through an inbox or a shared folder, it passes that information onto Claude, which reads it and just pulls out the important information. And from there, it needs a validation step that checks the extracted data against the rules that the business follows. So does the sender exist in their records? Do the tools actually add up? Is everything coded correctly? Anything that passes goes straight through to the accounting software or a spreadsheet, and it's all fully formatted. And anything that doesn't pass will be flagged. It will be sent to a Slack channel with the original document, and then a note will be attached of what actually looks off. So a human only ever has to spot the exceptions. You can see that from my explanation, this is an incredibly simple workflow. It just follows logic and the already existing business rules. For a lot of document handling workflows, you don't even need any AI at all. A lot of the time, it can literally just be full automation. One thing to look out for though is that don't go 100% hands off from day one. Build in a confidence threshold. If every field looks solid, let it flow straight through. If anything looks off, the sender is new, or the total is unusually high, route it to a human for a quick check. That one safeguard is the difference between this saved us 25 hours a week or this cost us a $40,000 mistake on month 2. So far, everything we've covered happens quietly in the background. The business just notices things feel faster and cleaner than they did before. System 3 is a bit different, and this is something that businesses and their customers look at every single day: their website. Now, in my opinion, web design and creation is the biggest advancement in AI that we've seen, and also has the lower barrier to entry. The vibe coding web design platforms that now exist make it incredibly easy to put something together. Now, before I actually get into the profitability of this service, I want to dispel a few objections that commonly come up around this type of service. People often say that if it's easy, businesses will just do it in-house themselves, which is just a stupid argument. People pay money for any sort of inconvenience. A traditional web design project for a business like this usually gets quoted somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 and takes 6 to 10 weeks, and generally with a few rounds of revisions. Using AI to handle the heavy lifting, the structure, the copy drafts, and the actual build, that same result can literally come together in days instead of weeks, with most of your time spent reviewing and refining instead of building from zero. For you, that's the difference between one project a month or several projects a month. And for the client, say they get around 800 visitors a month. And right now, 1% of those turn into an inquiry. That's only 8 leads a month. A faster site with a working contact form front and center could realistically push that to 2.5%, which is 20 leads a month, more than double, with zero changes in traffic or ad spend. So how do you actually build this? This is the one system on the list where I would personally reach for Claude Code over a no-code tool, because the deliverable is actually the code itself. It's a real website and it's not a workflow. Claude Code can generate and assemble an entire site page by page, which gives you something custom rather than a templated drag and drop result. If you have a client who potentially wants to edit the pages themselves afterwards, an AI-assisted builder like Framer is worth considering. You're just trading some customization for editability. At a high level, the process starts with a short discovery conversation to get the basics. The services they offer, who their customer is, any existing branding they might have, and any few sites that they like the look of. From there, AI helps draft the structure, which pages the site actually needs, what sections can go on each one, and a first pass at the copy. That structure then gets turned into an actual working site, responsive, fast loading, with a real working contact form, all built around their brand. The part that takes the most care is the polish that comes after, going back through the design details, all of the imagery, the spacing, the colors, and making sure that it doesn't read as a generic AI output. And then making sure you actually fold in the client's feedback before anything goes live. Once it's ready, it gets deployed on a platform like Vercel or Netlify with a domain connected. And from there, it's worth offering a small ongoing retainer for updates, tweaks, hosting, which then turns a one-time project into a recurring revenue. If you want to actually see a video of me building a website from scratch using Claude Code and walking through every single step, join my school community. The link is in my bio. So one important build tip here, don't ship the first AI draft. AI generated sites tend to look fine, but most of the time they're generic. And the value that you're adding is taste. Better imagery, tighter copy, fixed spacing and hierarchy, things like that. Budget real time for that polish part. Make sure you budget real time for that polish pass. It's what separates an AI made this from a professional made this. And while you're at it, wire that contact form into the funnel system from earlier. A really nice site that doesn't feed into a follow-up system is only doing half of its job. So now the front door looks great and the funnel behind it is fully wired up. There's just one piece left, making sure that whoever's running the business can actually see what's happening with all of it, without spending hours every week just pulling reports together. The final service is probably the simplest of them all. Using System 2, you can now use the documents that you handle to provide real-time updates to the team across all of their different tasks. Take a small marketing agency with 4 accounting managers, each handling 5 different clients. Every Friday, each one of them will spend around 90 minutes per client logging into ad platforms, looking at analytics, the CRM, and then copying all of those numbers into a report. So let's add that up. That's about 7.5 hours per account manager per week. 30 hours across the entire team just compiling numbers that already exist somewhere else. Say at a loaded cost of around $35 an hour. That's over $54,000 a year spent purely on copy-paste reporting. Automate the pulling and the first draft of the write-up, and that 90-minute task per client drops to a 10-minute review window. The team then gets most of that 30 hours a week back, and that time then turned into more client-served or actual strategy work. So here's how you can put this together. So it's the same reasoning as the document pipeline. I'd build this in N8N. It's mostly about connecting to a handful of existing tools using their APIs and running on a schedule, which is exactly what a workflow tool is built for. You could write this in Claude Code if you wanted full control over the formatting, but with 5 or 6 different platforms to connect, the pre-built connectors save a lot of setup time. At its core, this system needs to run on a schedule. So you need it daily for things like sales numbers, weekly for things like client reports, and connect to whatever platforms hold all of the relevant data. So ad accounts, the CRM, project management tools, analytics, everything like that. Once it's pulled the latest numbers, AI takes the raw data and writes a short, plain English summary. What's changed, what's trending, anything that stands out. That summary then gets delivered wherever the team already looks, whether that's a Slack message, an email digest, or a shared document maybe. So there's no new dashboard or new login code required. Alongside that, it's worth running a second, lighter version of the system continuously in the background for real-time alerts. Watching for specific events like deal closing, a task overdue, or cost spiking, and then firing off an instant notification at the moment any of that happens. So the last build tip of the video, don't automate everything at once. Pick the single report that currently eats the most time, which is usually a weekly client report or a daily sales recap, and just get that one exactly right first. Build the trust with the client first, then overhaul their entire alert system. Okay, so let's bring this all together. System 1, a sales funnel overhaul that catches new leads instantly and wakes up old ones. System 2, a document pipeline that gets a team's time back from manual data entry. And System 3, a website rebuild to actually convert the traffic it gets. And System 4, a reporting layer that does the finding out what happened work automatically. All 4 of these systems are not the most clever or complex use cases for AI, but they directly relate to real business problems that have existed for decades. And every business has them. If you like the video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. As I mentioned earlier, I've also just launched my AI community. So if you'd like to go further with all of this, click the link in my bio. I'll see you in the next one.